Well, it's 2 days before Christmas, and a friend of mine called up and says, "Hey, you want to go dove hunting today?" I says, "Nah, I got a lot of work to do." I said, "But tomorrow we can go partridge hunting. That sounds like a good idea." Hey, just kidding. Hope you're all getting prepared for Christmas. It's going to be a wonderful Christmas this year. Have your family over and celebrate the fact that, Christmas is something that we are guaranteed under the Constitution, under our rights. And don't let people tell you that you don't have the right to gather together and celebrate and worship your God as you choose. So, in that vein, last week we talked about developing and building a resilient community, and that I would be getting back with you on some areas that you can work on, and that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at some areas that you can work on and put effort into to start building that resiliency within your community. The first thing we talked about last week was the fact that you don't have to get really prepared to do a whole lot if you're going to get into the political system. You can get into the political scene right now down at the lowest level, at the precinct level, by going down to your county office, filling out an application, and getting nominated to fill a precinct seat as a precinct leader, starting at that level. If you don't even want to go at that level, you can actually go lower than that and start working with your homeowners association or maybe a neighborhood watch group. Just get busy working something, or if you have aspirations of working higher, you can go at the state level or even the national level, because if you get laws passed and somebody representing your conservative values at those levels, then we can maybe guarantee them into the future. In that vein, what we really need to do for the local businesses and people is have access to legal representation. This has been an area that every time that we get a group together, they're like, well, what if I get sued? Or what if the state comes against me? Or what if I have to do some kind of legal action? I can't afford to go to court. Well, indeed, going to court is expensive. And if somebody tells you that the court system is fair, it's not. Those with the most money generally win, because if nothing else, they can stall you out. And the cost of a court case just gets higher the higher you go fighting that case. So if you can find a legal office in the area that is sympathetic to your cause and wants to have a conservative, well-rounded, resilient community, then maybe they can agree to represent people, or you can put in a fund that you can build up to help represent businesses within your community that might come under legal attack. Just a wise thing, and it's always good to know your legal grounds. Years ago, we had education that was called a classical education. A classical education taught history as we knew it. As you know, over the years, they've been changing history, and now they're trying to rewrite it even again this year and get rid of our forefathers, our founding fathers, get rid of the reasons behind the Civil War and all those things. Well, history is history. You have a right to it. There's an old saying, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. But what happens if you're learning the wrong history? How can you ever know where you're going if you haven't known where you've been and why? So going to school, your education becomes a very important thing. So it's important with everything you do within this resilient community you're trying to build. Not just a formal education, but education on all these areas that we're talking about today. So I highly would recommend that you really pull your kids out of school and homeschool. Go to a charter school or a private school where you can get a classical education for your children and learn about critical thinking. Or you can, almost all states have got homeschool associations and organizations that work within the state. Or you could go on a national level with the Homeschool Legal Defense Agency back in Virginia and become a member with them who will represent you should you have a legal case come against you for your homeschooling or for having your kids out of school, attending a charter school or a private school. Doesn't cost much, and they do a wonderful job, and they also have wonderful resources for you to use. So education is key, and going into the future, now that we're having these vaccines that are coming out and everything's going digital, you're going to find that your child is not going to be able to go to a public school without having a shot record showing that they have all the vaccines that they demand. So it's just going to become an issue, and it's just better to not even have to deal with it. Homeschool or go to a private or charter school. Set them up within your community and support them. The other thing we can do is start victory gardens or have community gardens outside of the community like they do in Germany. In Germany they had little garden plots and they had houses and everybody'd go out on the weekend and work their gardens over. Gardens are just a good way to make sure that you have food coming into the system. It helps take some burden off of your food bill by raising it yourself, and also you know what's going into the food you're raising, so you don't have all the toxins that are continuing to attack your immune system, which, as you know, is a problem with what we've done with COVID. It's not necessarily the virus itself that's attacking everybody. It's not. It's having a major effect on people who have immune deficiencies and are lacking in vitamin D3. So, if you're out on the weekend, working in your garden, getting some sunshine, fresh air, and exercise, that's the best thing you can do is to stay healthy, and also improve the food source that you're using in your home. My folks used to can food every year. My dad raised a wonderful garden. I never got the knowledge from him to be as successful as he was, but they raised a garden. Even if they only had 1 acre or they had a backyard, they turned some of the yard into a garden and they raised that, and then they learned how to can. They canned their food, they freeze-dried food, so they put all that into an area that they could use throughout the year to supplement the food that they bought. Now, some of this means that you're going to have an area to store it in, whether it be a commercial area where there are some commercial storage freezer units, which are good to have in the area for large stocks of food. And if you don't have any, that's a great opportunity for somebody to invest in a business of having a cold storage unit. Or you can have a freezer in your garage, or where you can put your canned goods and your frozen goods. Having food on hand is a good idea because, as you know, once we were just talking about history, throughout history the way a government controlled its people was to control the food source. If you can control the food, you control the people. So being able to raise your own food, store it yourself, and have access to it is key for maintaining a sustainable community. Along with food, one of the necessities in life, obviously, is water. We have to have a good water source. You know, everybody seems to think that you can have stacks and stacks of bottled water. Well, the water, except for the fact that it's in plastic, and plastic can be harmful to you. It literally seeps into the water that you drink and has a bad effect on your body. Unless, of course, you've got plastic sources or sources of storage that don't have that negative side to it. So, go ahead and look into water storage, water purification systems. You know, in many states they were putting fluoride in their water, they were putting chlorine in your water, but even worse than that, a lot of your states tested for all kinds of drugs that have gotten into the water system. So you need to make sure you have a good water source, a way to purify it, and then a way to store it. And this is just key to your resiliency into the future. The last couple topics we talked about, food and water, have a direct impact upon your health. Now, most of your doctors have been trained classically, which means they believe in these shots that they're trying to give you and all the immunization shots that you should take as a child, which we know has had a bad effect on children and their growth and detrimental to their immune system. So see if you can find a doctor in the area who's more holistically trained and who is willing to, you know, not charge those exorbitant prices that you see and the demand for insurance, one sort or another, and support the community within the area with good medical advice and medical treatment that's not going to bust the bank. You know, there's got to be registered nurses and licensed practical nurses in the area that can go out and literally come to your house and not having the cost of going to a doctor's office, and help you out with, you know, small medical problems that would just need somebody with some medical training to look at and give you advice on how to treat. Also, what we're looking at, and it hasn't been developed yet, is that your local community can set up, in conjunction with your doctors, some type of insurance that will cover a portion of their treatment, but can be kept right in the area. In other words, it's a different type of insurance program, not the major insurance programs that you're being forced to participate in now that cost, you know, thousands of dollars a year to be a member of and to use, and then you have to hit caps and, you know, deductible levels and all that. So look at creating your own insurance program for medical needs. There's other kinds of medical supports you can also look into. homeopathics. They've been around for years, and although the mainstream medical system doesn't want to acknowledge them, and actually the government is trying to put a stop to them, they have been proven to work. And you can also use herbals and those types of treatments on some, on some types of ailments, which is a lot cheaper, that you can do yourself, and through supplements and things boost your immune system without the need to even go to a doctor. So see if you can foster that type of care within your community. Businesses in your community need to learn to stay open and have control over their own future. To do this, a lot of times you may look at starting a private membership. We did this when I was on the farm. I mean, the USDA said, hey, you can't sell below half a cow to somebody legally, according to the USDA. But if you had a private membership and somebody who literally was a member of your co-op of the products you grew on your farm, then you could sell whatever you wanted to them because it was a private organization. So you may want to look at privatizing your businesses and see how that works in an area to, like I said, build more resilience in your community and have access for the members of the community to that business. All this is impacting upon the cash flow within a community. Your farms keep the economic cash flow within the community, businesses staying open, supporting the community, maintain the economic cash flow within the community. So finances is, as you know, being financially secure is everybody's concern. So you may want to look at other ways to generate finances and maintain them within the community. You can have things like cryptocurrency. Maybe you invest in hard currency. I have silver and gold that I have as a backup just in case the paper currency fails. You can also look at things like microloans. If you've got money in the bank that's really making no money, it used to be able to make a pretty good percentage and you were encouraged to put money in the bank. Now some banks even charge you for having your money in the bank, kind of like they're doing you a favor, although they're loaning your money out and making money on it more than you are. So take that money out of the bank and invest in your community. Some people have projects, they have other businesses they'd like to start up. Maybe you can finance that at a minimal interest rate, and now you're making money and it's staying within the community. Some of this is called slow money, which is the investment of your money back into the community. There's a whole book on it. There's a series on it on YouTube you can look at. Same way with time money. What that means is that time banking is where you take your skills and you volunteer them to somebody. Let's say somebody wants to build something and you're a carpenter. So you go spend X number of hours helping them build a shed or a house or an addition. You write that down and say, well, I have put X amount of time into this time bank. And then somebody else that has a different kind of talent can put money into the time bank by volunteering their time. And you can exchange time like a currency to benefit from other things with other skills that people have that they are doing within the community. Once again, there's a complete series on this on YouTube. Just look up time banking and watch it. It's a great way to exercise your skills within the community, kind of like a barter system that benefits everybody, but doesn't really cost anybody in the sense that it's not taxable, and it does help the community at large. So that's kind of all the areas we're going to go over today. Being resilient going into the future, I think, is going to be key. We've gone through this whole COVID fiasco with masking and shutdowns and people being threatened at their businesses. And going into the future, we're going to, like I said the other day, we're going to run into food issues come this spring because they shut down the packers saying there was too many people sick, and they were being, all of our food at that level was being basically controlled at the large packers. We need to go and do things like support the Prime Act so that we can have local packers, local production shops that can support the community. Also open up co-ops. Keep your money local. That is the real key here. You've got to be able to sustain things locally. And, you know, the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, all local within the community, supporting that community. So whether or not the government ever does this again, you as a community are resilient and can maintain the quality of life that you have worked for and that you want for your loved ones and your family. So thanks for joining me. We'll put some more out on this, and I'll put some sites out that you can go to on YouTube so you literally can get educated on these various topics and apply them to building your resilient community.